How do you go from an engineer working on nuclear power plant engines to starting a business, launching a best selling book, and starting a podcast? Well, my guest today did just that. Tune in to today's episode where I interview Ron Macklin. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Late Starters Club. I am your host, Andrea Vall, and today I am joined by Ron Macklin, who is, among other things, the founder of the Macklin Connection. But he's got a long list: a husband, father, son, best-selling author, guide, leader, follower, entrepreneur, investor, developer, and authentic scared self. That's my favorite one. So welcome, Ron.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for having me on your show, and thank you for putting the show together.
Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about your journey because we were just kind of getting connected. We got connected through Podmatch, which I think is the dating app for podcasters. But it's a great place to meet inspiring new people. And I just love hearing about your story because we have some similar backgrounds with being recovering engineers who have started something totally new. But I'd love to have you kind of share your late starter journey in life, how you transitioned from engineer working on nuclear power plant motors, right? Or engines,
Engines,
whatever
yeah.
engines, to now what you do today, which is very different than what you went to school for.
Thanks, Andrea. So I'll start with my first job, right? Which
Uh-huh.
was I was a football player.
Mhm.
I actually played through high school, junior college, and then Division One.
Mhm.
And I loved football, but it wasn't the game itself. It was working together with a team. So that was the beginning of this journey, right?
Mhm.
Was leading and organizing a team when you're on the field in, like, most people would say combat, but you're playing the game, but you have an enemy, right? So you're in
Mhm.
combat, right?
Mhm.
I found my love there, not in the game, but in the leading of people and creating a team that could do something that most people said couldn't be done. From there, I went into engineering. I think because it had the least amount of English possible. Like, that was why I chose it. It wasn't that I was passionate about engineering, although I do love to take things apart, put them back together, and figure out how I could
Same.
improve them.
Yeah.
So, like, I had some inkling of that, right? And got out of school, went to work for a big power generation company. Was At the time it was Westinghouse, which
Mhm.
turned into Siemens, Westinghouse, and then Siemens. And I worked in the power generation industry. So you have nuke
Mhm.
plants, coal fired plants, combined cycle gas plants, and like your car, you have to do maintenance on them. And
Mhm.
we'd come in and take them all apart and put them back together because you don't want them to shut down while they're running. Like, you want them to run and then stop and then fix them and then go back in. And what I found is it was just kind of like playing football. Like, it was a team, you had to put them together, had to get you to understand what the goals were, had to share that. Everybody got to contribute and create this whole space. And it was like, as beginning of the thread here, like what I love to do in life.
Mhm.
And so as I was doing that, we said, why don't we see how fast we can do it? Because every time the power plant's running, it makes electricity, but when you shut it down, it doesn't make electricity. So how do we
Yeah.
make it? How do we make it shorter outage? Like, when they shut it down, we can go from a 28-day to a 14-day. That would be worth something. Like
Mhm.
like 14 more days of generation, $1 million a day. That could make it worthwhile. And so we set out to reduce the outage down as short as we could get. We went from normally a 25, 30-day outage down to 9 days. And it was a lot of fun because we got to set world records, and people were having
Wow.
like rewards from their job. They could go home and tell their kids, I set a world record today.
Yeah.
And we actually filmed it, stop motion videoed it. This was back in the 90s. Stop
Uh-huh.
motion videoed it. And we gave everybody a copy of it because, like, it's the ownership of being a part of the team that's what I was
Yeah.
focused on. Right. So you can see I'm still building teams, continue to work up through there. Went to Germany for 3 years, built some teams over there, all around North America, Northern Hemisphere, really is where I worked. Came back to, and about this time I began to realize they keep assigning me to those groups that are, like, struggling. right?
Mm.
When you see a group that's struggling, like we had a new manager every 2 years for the last 5 years, last five
Yeah.
managers.
Yeah.
That's where I get assigned, right? And I go,
Mhm.
cool. I mean, I was loving it. Like
Yeah.
anytime somebody says it can't be done, I'm in, right? That's where I want to be because I can build a team with the same people that are there, and they do it, not me. I don't
Uh-huh.
do it. That's the whole secret to this whole process.
Right.
It's not about me telling them what to do. It's about them doing what they love to do, and
Yeah.
that's where you do that. So we took the worst run organization in North America for Siemens, and 3 years later, we got the best place to work in Houston, Texas award. So,
Wow.
like a shift of the people from in that space. And the truth is, they were doing it all. I didn't do much. I mean, after I
Mm.
got started, I was kind of bored because they were doing
Mm.
it. They were doing the job. They loved what they were doing. They were getting it done.
Mhm.
And that's when I started to create. How can I do this other places? So that was like the beginning of like creating it. Now I've been in my mid 40s. Continued to work there. Went to work for another company as a vice president. Then left that, came to work at a medical device company because a friend had asked me to come help out. I just kept working on how do we build teams? How do we build teams? And how do we build those connections? Really, the team is kind of a misleading term. It
Mhm.
really comes down to how do you build a connection between two humans or multiple groups of two humans, and then that they trust each other,
Right.
that they're willing to express themselves. They're willing to take help as well as give help. And you can be yourself. And when you screw something up, you can go, oh, good. What can we learn? Not,
Mhm.
oops, I got to hide this. And I need to keep
Mhm.
this I got to keep this away, right? Because I'm embarrassed of that I'm human. I make mistakes. And that's kind
Right.
of how I got into space. So it was about 6 years ago. I was 53 and I decided I didn't want to work for somebody else anymore. I wanted to
Mhm.
go do this full time in my world. So I resigned my position as president of the medical device company, and I started forming this one.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt it was about the time the founder came out. So I go, hey, Roy Kroc started when he was 53 too, right? Right, in a little bigger empire than we're at
Yeah.
right now, but it's not too late.
Right.
And it was a that's where the journey began.
Right, and what I love about this is that you realized it wasn't, it wasn't the working on the motors or doing the, getting that done. It was the team building that was the thread that tied this all together that made it fun for you. And you decided to take that method into your own business and help lots of other teams. So that is really cool. And I love that too, that it's not too late. A lot of people start thinking about retirement when they're in their 50s. They're like, well, I'm just, 10 more years and I'll be able to hang it up. But you're starting something new, totally new. You'd never started a company before, and you figured out how to do it.
Yep, I've learned a lot of things to not do. I can say that for sure. A whole lot of not that's, but there's also a lot of things I've learned that I didn't know. I mean, I just didn't know where to even start on some of it.
Right.
And a lot of
Right.
stuff, and we tried things like, we're on our 4th website now, but we
Mhm.
tried things and we're doing, and we just go like, "Okay, that didn't work. Okay,
Mhm.
what did we learn? And how do we go on?
Right.
Keep going."
Right. Right. So, like, did you have like any mentors you looked to with starting? How did you get the whole engine running to, enrolling? Did you start on the side or did you just say one day I'm quitting and going all in? How did that evolve?
Yeah, I had a lot of people offer to be mentors, and
Uh-huh.
as I ran into this, I had a great, mentor in, David and Britta, who are Britta's, my wife's cousin, but they're in the e-commerce business. Like they sell things online and do stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so they were helpful to me trying to help build a presence and understand the mechanics of what does it mean to have a website? What does it mean to be all this stuff? What does it mean to do email marketing? What is it?
Right.
All that stuff. They were
Right.
great mentors in this space. And for me, it was like every other day I'm calling Germany. They lived in Germany, right? I'm calling Germany. What is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? Right? And finally go, okay, let's just schedule a weekly call, write down your questions. We'll get on the call, right? Thank God WhatsApp is out there so we can continue to communicate and talk to each other. So
Uh-huh.
they were pretty helpful in that part of it.
Mhm.
And then there was like, how do I form? like the business itself.
Mhm.
Like you want to have a limited liability corporation, you want to
Right.
go in and get that set up. Like, how do I find the right guy to do it? And then what do I want to have inside my documents, right? And I had a great friend, Eric, who really helped me kind of go like, okay, you got to look at it this way. Imagine that everything goes the worst possible way. That's what you want to create it for, right? You want to create your stuff to where it covers you for that, and then you can relax, and
Yeah.
you can go out and be free and be in your stuff, right? It was great help. That was great
Yeah.
helping and shaping that. And he had done several businesses. I mean, he had done several businesses and created all that stuff. So he was going like, I've been there. I know where you're at,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
In this space. And then the rest of the mentors that showed up were people who found what we were doing and found it inspirational.
Mhm.
And they wanted to come in and bring what they had. They wanted to join the business. They wanted to come in. And then so now they're not just like a mentor, they're like a guide. And they're in
Mhm.
with me every day. So I do what I do, help them develop their competencies and skills in the leading and coaching. And they're
Uh-huh.
helping me understand like how to think about business and how to think about that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's so important to have people you can rely on, have a team, and what I love about what you're doing as well is that you're working on building trust, and it takes trust to be able to take this leap to start something new and trust in the advice that you're getting from people who've gone before you and
Yeah.
all that. So it's definitely that's awesome. That's great. So talk about where the one I love the title of your book, and I want to talk about where that came into play and how that because you wrote a book for your let's see, you were at age 59, right? First book at age 59.
Yeah. Well, when I finished it, I was age 59. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wrote that at 59. And what's your like? Why did I name it? What I named it, or what's it about,
Yeah.
or what's your
Yeah,
story?
so the book title just didn't even say the book title, but Everyone is Afraid: A Fable of Fear, Friendship, and Flourishing. I
Yeah.
love that.
Thanks. So what the book is about is it's a space for people to notice that they're not alone because they're afraid. It's actually written about in the foreword by Bowen White, Dr. Bowen White, and my own first chapter was I went into a situation where I was 31, just got out my master's in business administration, and I was going to a breakfast in Kansas City area when
Mhm,
I was living there. And there was this guy in front with a white coat on, like a lab coat, like a doctor, but he had like balloons under his pants from behind, so a big bum, right, and a red nose, and he was like Dr. Yurko is what he called himself, and he was talking about fear. He was talking about anxiety, and the room was full of like top executives from the Kansas City area.
mhm,
I was going like I was full of fear, right? Because I'm going like I don't belong here. I'm 31. They're all 50 something, right? So
mhm,
they've already made it. I'm still looking to make it, right?
mhm,
And he pointed. He goes, this question: how many of you are afraid, and you think there's something wrong with you that you're afraid? And I was sitting in the front of the room because I figured if I sat in the front of the room, I could fill up, get all the good information, right? And he started to raise his hand and point at me, and what he was just doing is pointing out in the world. But I felt like he pointed at me because it's my fear. And he said, "Look around." And as I raised my hand and looked around, everybody in that room had their hand up. And I shifted from everybody's afraid and there's something wrong with me, right, to everybody's afraid and that's normal.
mhm,
And then over the next 20 some odd years, as I met people that were what I consider to be, you could say powerful people, but I could just say people who had power to get things done. Like they
mhm,
had a good career, they had a good life, they were competent in what they were doing, they were open, right? They had one thing in common. They all talked about their fears. They all could talk about them. Like it
mhm,
gets shared out into the world. They didn't have fear, or say they had fears, their fears didn't have them. They
mhm,
could talk about their fears, like I was scared to death about this, and this could happen. I could be a failure if this happened, unless I was sitting there going like, wow. Right. When you can talk about your fears, when you can acknowledge them,
mhm,
then maybe the fears don't control you. But when you don't talk about them and you look at Facebook or Instagram or anybody's pages, LinkedIn, we all talk about how we're afraid and we all talk about how we're, scared of these things. And no, we got our shields up. I made this accomplishment. I got this thing's going great. Look how pretty I look. Look how good my kids look. Look how good my parents. All of that
Mhm.
stuff is, those are just shields to
Mhm.
protect our fears. And when we can put those shields down, they're just stories. They're not really shields. But you put those stories down, you can talk to anybody. So the book is a fable written, like these aren't real characters. Although I've had people come to me and say, "Did you write that about me?" No, you just saw yourself in that character, right? And it's all made up, and it's a
Uh-huh.
chance where all these characters begin to discover that, like, they think they gotta do it alone, and they can't let
Yeah.
anybody see that they're afraid, and their answer is, "Let's just work harder, not work together."
Mm.
And as they begin to pull through those things and realize, "Wow, everybody really gets afraid," and when we can talk about those fears, we can all live a better life. And so that's the
Yeah.
purpose of the book, is to create that space.
That is awesome, and that's so good for, relating back to teamwork too, because I think if you're afraid, you aren't you do get into that mindset, like, "I gotta go it alone." You're afraid because you're alone, right? You're afraid because you feel alone in the world, you're the only one
What
who feels
and
this way.
Andrew, we could
Yeah.
be sitting in a meeting and we're afraid, and what we could add into the room may change the entire outcome of the room, but we're sitting there quiet and afraid.
Mhm.
We're not putting ourselves into the game. We're
Yeah.
sitting on the sidelines. Now, same room, one guy stands up, says something, everybody goes, "Yeah, that's it. That's good. Let's go." Right? Or a really powerful team, somebody says, "Hey, there's an idea." And somebody goes, "Well, I like that, but we could add this to it. Oh, this is great. No, no, let's start over here with that." And all of a sudden, everybody's got some input into it. And what you can create is maybe 100 times better
Mhm.
than any one idea, because you could bring it together. But if you're afraid and you can't talk because you're afraid, now we're all going to be afraid. Your fear never goes away. It's just whether you put your fear in the back seat and say,
Mhm.
"You can ride back there. I'm going on," right? And
Yeah.
if you're still gonna be there, you're still gonna be afraid, you're still gonna be nervous, all that stuff's gonna happen, and you're gonna put yourself into the world, and you're gonna make a difference for everybody that's there.
Mhm.
That's one example, but when you want to create something in the world, kinda like starting a business when you're 53,
Yeah.
there's all that fear that can stop you.
Yeah, and all that, I mean, you know, I so many things are scary, right? Where, especially if you are starting something new or putting yourself out there in a more creative way, that can feel like just very vulnerable. You might be scared that you're going to lose your livelihood, scared that it's just not going to work out, scared that people are going to make fun of you or say, "Who is that? Who is she to do something like this?" Like, "What is she? Who does she think she is?" Or whatever. And so it's terrifying so often. And but it's the only way to is to push through, right? And
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. What you talked about there showed up as all the reasons why I think I shouldn't put it out there, because of all those things will happen.
Mhm.
But what I notice is we never think about that about other people. Like we go, well, they shouldn't have said that. That's terrible. Oh my God, they should. No, we would never do that. But we make it up for ourselves because that is the story in our head,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is the name
Yeah.
of our podcast. But the story in
Yes.
your head is like, to look at those stories we make up in our head, is they're just stories.
Exactly, exactly, and the story in your head is often that other people are thinking about you at all. They're often not even they're so worried about their own stuff. They're not worried about your
They're,
stuff.
they're, they're
They're
so busy
they're
with
worried
their
about
story in their
right,
head, they can't even
right,
hear you or notice you're even there. Now
right.
imagine a room where you got 15 people that are all sitting in their heads going like, "I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not strong enough, I shouldn't say anything, nobody's gonna like me, I'm gonna hate all this stuff," right? Or a room that everybody goes, "Hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? Hey, what about if we try
Yeah,
this? What if we add this on top of that?" And
yeah,
everybody goes, "Oh, that was really good, thank you." Right? Look at the difference it makes. And just this is just a meeting. Imagine
yeah.
a whole company, a whole group that
Mhm.
could be open and authentic and real and laugh when they mess up,
Right,
instead of being
right.
ashamed that they messed up.
Yeah, yeah,
Now that's
yeah,
that's a company
exactly.
that that's a company, as I say, that's a company that sets world records. That's a
Mhm.
company that doubles their profitability 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
That's a company that just looks forward to coming to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a fun life.
Exactly. Exactly. We've gotta have fun. And I think, it's about, like, when you're if you're afraid of making a mistake or you're afraid of admitting a mistake or afraid you're gonna get punished for a mistake, then that just really impacts what you can accomplish, what you can do, how you can work together. So
So Andrea, I wanna offer this. Everybody I've met, the most powerful, competent people I've ever met, they still have the fears.
mhm.
Right? It's not like so if you're somebody's listening to this going like, oh, this is really cool if I get rid of my fears. Your fears never go away.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
a matter of you being able to have the courage to act in the middle of those fears. And when you trust everybody around you, it's much easier
Mhm.
to have courage
Yeah.
because you go, well, Ron will have my back. Andrew will have my back. Right.
Mhm.
I'm good with that. Right. Because when I get it out there, I can go forward. I'm still scared. Right. And when somebody goes, that was a good idea, you can just see their whole shoulders go, oh, thank God I didn't. Right.
Yeah.
But that's that fear inside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's always going to be there.
Right.
It's just whether or
For
not
sure.
you keep acting with the fear.
Yeah, and I think it's also a response to, it can be a response to what we what the story is around failure, right? Because, I mean, that can be a whole thing in itself if we're, if we've got this story that failure is the end or failure is the worst or failure means I'm stupid or whatever it means, then that can create more fear. But if you're, just realizing that failure is just feedback, hey, that didn't work. What else? What's next? What so that's a great
Yeah. It's,
reframe.
when you can hold that when you fail, all it means is you failed. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything else about you or anybody
Mhm.
else. It just means you failed. You go, oh, that didn't work that way.
Right.
Cool. What can we do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus, oh, we failed. Oh, guess I'm a failure. I guess I shouldn't have
Eh,
tried. I guess I should be quiet now. I guess I shouldn't want to talk.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so talk about where something that you have, done in starting your business or starting your book or starting your podcast. What's something for you that didn't go right that, you learned from and, kind of a big takeaway or aha moment that you've had during this journey of starting later in life?
I'll just pick one because we only got 30 minutes here. Um, so first thing I would say about the book, this is my second book because the first book sucked so bad that I couldn't use it. And what it was really a book around the story of like how I discovered what I discovered, how I went through and did what I did become there. When I got done with it, it really looked like it was all about me.
Mm,
Right. And I was going like, oh no. And then I remembered after a year, I remembered nobody wants to be told what to do. They want to discover it. And the best way to discover it is to tell a story that enables people to read something and go, what about, I discovered that. Like, and they did, they really did discover it. So the book is all about, I guess, what is a technical term is Easter eggs. There's all kinds of Easter eggs planted throughout the entire book for people to discover something about them and about the world to go forward. But the first book, it was just telling. I was just telling a story. Here's how I did this. This is where I did this. This is where I screwed this up. This I did that.
mhm,
And I went, no, it's not my stand. It's
mhm.
not that's not how I want the world to interact with the story that we're putting out in the world.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there was a year on of 250 pages that still sits there and looks at me,
Well,
and it's going to stay that way. Yeah.
well, that is awesome. And then you've you launched the book and it went to bestseller, right? It was number 1 in new release
Number
and
one new release and the number two bestseller.
yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, we're pretty excited about the book, and I think the part that's I'm enjoying the most is as people find it, they reach out.
Uh-huh.
Like they find the book, they read it, and then they send me an email and they say, thank you for this book. It was really good. I really appreciate it. They either
Yeah.
find me on LinkedIn or they find me through our website and space. So when you can find somebody who, like, you didn't write the book for them,
Mhm.
right, and they got something out of it, that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That is cool. That is cool. Yeah, I think for sure in this day and age of social media and sometimes the facade that is up in front of, what's really behind the curtain, it's hard to remember that everyone is afraid. So that is that is for sure. People say, "Oh, you're so brave. You're so brave." I'm like, "Maybe. I don't I don't know." In some little instances here and there.
Cool. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Yeah, so, awesome. So, talk a little bit about what you do with the Macklin Connection, your and who you work with.
So we work with our main target for businesses is we try to stay in the range of people who are somewhere between like 10 and 100 million in
Mhm,
sales,
mhm,
and that have a culture that they don't love, even though sometimes people don't know that it's a culture that they don't love about
mhm,
the company. They go,
mhm,
I just can't seem to keep people. I can't seem to, right, motivate people. I can't bring in new talent. I can't do all that kind of stuff. And what we do is we come in and we help them, like, by coaching executives, but also by putting the middle management and the first level management through some of our workshops.
mhm,
And that way you get a kind of a beginning to understand the stories inside of those three layers. And
mhm,
it kind of, the whole company begins to shift at the same time.
mhm.
And we don't like, there's no prescribed culture to get, like, we don't have, here's your culture, take this pill and you'll be done. Although that the red pill would be nice. No, the 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 space is, you get to the tools to be able to create your own culture. And
Yeah,
culture is not a top down, and it's not a bottom up. It's a all the way across. Have to work together to create it. And when you get to the
mhm,
place where you begin to create your own stand, like what you will do and won't do, might do as a group, you've now taken responsibility for your culture. And you're going to create that as you go forward. So we work with them. Courses take somewhere between 18 weeks. And normally we do 2 or 3 of those per company. And it just gives everybody a chance to begin to understand, what does it mean to be afraid? What does it mean to trust another person? What does it mean to not tell people what to do, but to let them discover what to do and figure
mhm.
out how to contribute? So everybody gets to put into the company. What people go to work for is they want to contribute.
Right.
They want to work for somebody they respect. They want to be respected from the people that are there, and they really want to make a difference.
Yeah,
Pay shows up somewhere in the bottom, but,
right.
like, if you don't pay them, they won't show up. But as far as why they're there, why they come into work every day, and when people start to work with that, they begin to create and take off and do stuff. And
Mhm.
then that's one of our main offers for Macklin Connection.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, I love what you've created. I love that, you, decided to start something totally new in your but carry through the threads from your whole career and just put a book, podcast, all kinds of great material, blog posts, everything out there, and it's awesome. It's awesome, very inspiring. So,
Thank you.
um, and as usual, we're for the closing of my interview here. What I love to get from people is their favorite motivational quote or inspirational saying, and talk about that.
So this one's from Abraham Lincoln, and it's, I may paraphrase a bit because it's
Mhm,
not in front of me. You cannot truly help people by doing for them what they should do for themselves. And I find this very centering in, it's about how do we help people create their own lives, right? As a leader and
mhm,
people are following, they're creating their own lives. It's not like we're going to tell them what to do and do what they like, right? That's doing for them, right?
mhm,
Where if we create a space where they get to contribute, they get to engage with us, they create it and it's theirs, it's a really good life and it's dignified. And I find that quote to be exceptionally centering for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's hard as a parent to kind of embody that
Woo!
sometimes.
Well, there's a whole thing about, for me, that's the way it shows up. For parents, we live in a space of two things. One, you want them to become a happy person in the future, and you don't want them to get run over by a truck.
Yeah,
Right? So there's like
it's
there's a safety thing pulling you in, right? And there's also this other thing pulling you out, and then this is what it means to be a parent. You're trying to
right.
push away and pull back at the same time, like
Yeah.
push, pull, right?
Yeah.
You want them to get on their own, and you don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah. So don't play in the road, but enjoy your enjoy,
Yeah, and there's
enjoy yourself.
all kinds of ways to get run over
I
in
know,
life.
right. Right.
So
That is
yeah,
true.
that's the part about being a parent. I accept.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Ron, this has been so much fun. Why don't you tell people where people can get connected to you? We'll have all the links in the show notes, but
Thanks.
share where people.
Yeah. If you want, first place to reach me is go to the imaginalcommunity.mn.co, which is our Imaginal Community, which is a Mighty Network site. Inside there, you just sign up, and then you'll find me in there and send me a note. That's the easiest way to make sure it gets to me. You can always send me an email at ron@macklinconnection.com.
Mhm.
Love to hear from you. Just be patient, because sometimes they get screened out and I only go through spam once a week. And you can also go to our macklinconnection.com website, and there's a place in there where you could say, I want to learn more, and fill that
Mhm.
out, and it'll come to myself or Deb Dindy, and we'll get back with you.
Yeah, and we'll have links to your podcast and your book and all of that as well. So, thank you so much, Ron, for your time and in your wisdom on all of this. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrea. Great show. Appreciate it.
Mhm. Thanks. Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.